Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. I felt like I spent a big part of my day today writing behavior plans for a bunch of students, and it made my life so much easier to have a template that I was able to use from. And since tomorrow we'll be discussing this on the membership webinar, I thought I'd come on here and share with you our must-haves to include in your behavior treatment protocol. So the first thing that you want to include when writing a behavior protocol is the definition of the behavior. So you want to define the behavior in terms that are very measurable and observable. So something like aggression would be a little bit too vague, but you can say things like kicking the child next to him or pinching somebody on the arm, and you want to make sure that you make that really easy for the people to know whether or not we're tracking that behavior. The next thing to include in your behavior protocol would be the reason for targeting that behavior. Sometimes we get caught up in behaviors that kind of just bother us, but they're not really necessary to be reduced. So in thinking about why do we want to reduce this behavior, it is important that there is social significance to that. And it's not just because it kind of gets on our nerves, but when writing a behavior protocol, it's because reducing this behavior is going to make their lives significantly better. So we want to include the reason why we're including this behavior. So it might be because it's disruptive to his learning. It's getting in the way of making friends. Any one of those reasons that might be socially significant and worth reducing. The next thing you want to include is the function. So you want to include any data that you've taken. If you have a functional analysis, this is where you would include that. How you've taken the data, how you've determined the function, and what you've determined the function to be. And then the next thing there is it's nice to include the triggers. So especially when somebody else is carrying out the behavior plan, when you can include what triggers the negative behavior, then it helps that person to look out for it. So it could be something like unstructured time, or it could be group situations. And including those triggers helps the person running the plan know how to jump in there proactively. So that's an important part. The next thing that we include is the data collection. So how are we taking data? And this is important because we want to take data before we intervene to know what the baseline levels of that behavior were, and then take ongoing data as we're intervening to know if the intervention is successful. So how are we collecting that data? It could be partial interval recording, it could be frequency, it could be duration, any one of those things that would give us an idea of whether this intervention is being successful and the behavior is actually reducing. And then, to me, the most important part of the behavior protocol, and the one that I think we should spend most of our time focusing on with the people implementing it, are the antecedent strategies. And these are the things we try to put in place to prevent the behavior from even happening. So it's one thing as behaviorists to give people tips and strategies of what to do when the behavior occurs, but any number of those tips and strategies are not going to prevent the behavior from occurring if they're only consequence strategies. So giving them proactive strategies to prevent the behavior from even happening, that's where all the learning happens. And that's where we can really get the learner to start using more functional skills. So that's replacement skills, functional communication, learning to wait, learning to tolerate sharing, any one of those really nice antecedent strategies that go along with the function. So if they have a really difficult time gaining other people's attention, an antecedent strategy might be teaching them to greet people or ask people for attention or play with other people. So there's so many antecedent strategies that can be really function-based. Once you know what the function is, you can pick strategies to teach them that hopefully will prevent the behavior from even happening, which is my favorite part because that's where all the learning gets to happen. And then, of course, there has to be consequence strategies. So what to do when the behavior does happen and giving the person carrying out the plan tips and strategies. So if the function is escape, you might want to say not to give them escape. If the function is attention, it might be ignore and redirect. Having consequence strategies, but also I like to divide the consequence strategies between things that are just beginning to escalate and then from a level that it's already, beyond escalation, and they've already gone pretty far down into the meltdown or the tantrum. So giving them like almost a level 1 and level 2 strategy for those consequences. And then last but not least is parent and team input, making sure that you get parents' opinions, parents' input, teams, teachers, whoever else is involved in needing to implement this plan, that you get their input, that they've read it, that they sign it, that they agree to it, because if we don't have buy-in from the people implementing the behavior plan, it's not going to happen. So whoever you need the buy-in from, going over it with them, getting their input, getting their feedback, and then having them sign it and agree to it. And then having ongoing supervision and training and support as they're carrying it out. So those are my must-haves in a behavior protocol template. If you want to make your lives even easier, we have a downloadable template that you can tailor and adjust and individualize to your students as you get them.